I am Brian Carroll of Summit Integrated Wellness, and I am here with Chris Soterakopoulos of Vita Integrated Health, and we are going to be talking about functional movement, and we will also be talking all about cupping. So Chris, can you go into kind of your background with physical therapy? What brought you into it, and why are you here now?
Oh man, that's a deep conversation. Let me look at the time. Sweet. So what brought me into physical therapy in the first place was 2007. I was playing basketball. Pretty big athlete growing up through my life, and playing a basketball tournament in Yakima, some guy fell in my leg, tore my ACL, MCL, and medial meniscus. So I had to have surgery and then rehab through a PT after that. And at the time, I was just working for Wells Fargo Bank and not very happy. And my PT was really inspiring, motivated, uplifting. And during the rehab process, I went through some stages of like depression and just being really down on life. And he was just that kind of inspiring spirit that gave me my life back. And I felt like that job itself was like so cool that I wanted to do the same. So he told me how to do it, and once I found out that it was achievable, I quit my job at the bank the following week and started a path towards becoming a PT. And went through University of Puget Sound, got my doctorate in 2012, and then went through Gary Gray and his fellowship of applied functional science, and became close to you, friend.
Yes, we go way back.
Yeah, and then past that, I've just done multiple certifications and everything, but the Gray Institute and what they've taught me is it's the number one thing I definitely implement in my practice now. And and just kind of worked my way up, and now I'm a director of physical therapy for Vita Integrated Health, which we have 3 clinics, Seattle, Everett, and Bellevue, and I primarily work out of the Everett location. So,
can you talk a little bit about your education from the Gray Institute? What exactly makes that different than your background in physical therapy?
Yeah, it's a great question, because you would think having a doctorate in physical therapy makes you an expert, but there are 2 different purposes behind it, I think. And the doctor of physical therapy, the education is geared more towards knowing every muscle, every nerve, every artery and vein in the body, every bone, and all the intricacies of the bone shape and structure. But it doesn't tell you exactly how the body functions against gravity or in real life and with movement. The doctorate does a really good job in going into what muscles do, kind of in open space, and how they contract and the physiology behind it, which is great. But what the Gray Institute did for me was it really gave me that connection of, well, this is now what the hamstring does when you're actually putting weight on it and moving against gravity. This is now what the soleus and gastric does, right? And so it really redefined muscle function and how the body moves for me, which ultimately led to improving the way I treat patients, how I treat patients, and my exercise design is off the charts. Like, I can come up with so many different ways now. So it really added that piece for me that I felt like you don't really get too much in school. But
so right now there's a lot of this buzzword of functional and functional movement, and a lot of the Gray Institute teaches this functional movement. Can you describe what the difference of a functional movement is compared to regular movement?
Yeah, so you're right. Like, the word functional movement gets thrown around a lot, or functional therapy, functional this and that, and I think everybody kind of has a different definition of it, so I might kind of relate to some, but I define mine based on the Gray Institute philosophy, but also on what I've learned through other classes that I've taken. So for me, how I define functional movement is any movement that is really authentic to life and controlling and managing your body weight against gravity. So walking, lunges, squats, a lot of groundwork, whether it's crawling type things or hands and feet on floor, doing different movement patterns, things like that. I like to relate a lot to neuromuscular development and just how we're starting off on the ground, how we move on the ground, and going back to those basics. But for me, that's how I would define functional movement, is those authenticities.
That's an interesting point to talk about, is those developmental features going from the ground back to, or all the way up to standing. Can you talk about the importance of allowing a child to crawl around on the ground and to figure out how to get up to their feet and working on their balance and figuring all those steps out on their own?
Yeah, that's super important. That is often overlooked, I think, by especially like first-time parents or even some pediatricians. From what I find is that they know that the importance is there, but they don't know maybe how long they should be in a certain stage, or just how important it is. And the reason our babies move and develop the way they move is, strength is one, but also it helps with bone formation, and the way that your ball and socket joints are formed really begins with those stages and how stable they are, and putting weight through them, the approximation, and being able to move really helps shape how the skeletal system takes place early on. And then I know a lot of people, they get really excited about their baby walking early or something like that, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, but it really is important for crawling to get that weight through the joints, start developing, laying down trabeculae through the bone, and really start forming that ball and socket joint or hinge joint or whatever joint is dependent on that weight-bearing skill set. So very important to not skip over milestones. It's okay to be accelerated through them. It's even okay to be delayed, but skipping over them completely is probably not of your child's best interest moving forward.
This is kind of going down a little rabbit hole, but what do you think about parents that spend more time holding their child instead of letting them play around on the ground?
I don't think that's bad, but you definitely, because I hold my children all the time. They're adorable and cute, but the importance of allowing them to be independent and actually get those movement patterns is huge. And just like in life, what now is all through experience and education and going through the process, right? And so for a child, it's the same thing. They're only going to move better if they actually get an opportunity to be independent. Practice, and that's really what it's about.
Okay.
Getting that time.
So when you're seeing patients, do you see kind of a disconnect between that on-ground function leading up to standing when they're coming in to see you?
You can. For sure. There's definitely times where you'll do something on the ground and it kind of looks funky or a little bit different, or patients are great. They'll try to come up with any strategy and implement anything they can to accomplish what you want, and to the best of their ability, but maybe it doesn't look right or get to exactly how you want. And so you can kind of talk about the process of what their development was, and it's pretty interesting to find out some of, if they have a funky crawl, or they don't really know how to do it. It's maybe not range of motion related, it's not strength related, maybe it's more just they only crawled for a month of their life, and so they never really had that practice, right? And so those kind of things are very interesting to hear, but it's not super often that I get those kind of cases.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So going back to your education, now you're doing all this functional movement in your practice. Can you describe what that looks like when someone comes in to see you if they have an injury? What's kind of the process you go through with them, and how do you assess them and treat them?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I utilize kind of both worlds of that PT brain and then that Gray Institute functional movement brain. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, I have this knee problem or back problem, what I usually do is there's three things I want to try to find out. Is it structurally related? Is it muscle, tissue, connective tissue related? Or is it nerve related? And so I will utilize orthopedic tests that we learned in school for physical therapy to determine the structural integrity of that system. And then I use that Gray Institute brain to kind of test, well, how does it respond to muscle or tissue work in the anterior chain, posterior chain, lateral chain, medial chain, and just kind of see how does it respond to work and activity. So a lot of my evals are based on movement rather than sitting down or laying down, coming up with different positions and strategies to kind of stress that tissue in a different way to see how does your injury and pain symptoms respond to it. And then also I just kind of look at the whole chain. So just because you have a back problem, I might look at your foot, I might look at your hip instead.
So instead of doing the entire assessment on a table, you're getting people actually up and moving and putting them into transformational zones that look like what it is that they're having issues in.
Exactly. And then from there, I can kind of pick like, oh, that looked funky. Let me look at it more, maybe isolated or, in a different kind of position or something like that. And it's really, really helpful.
Now, you've been taking cupping, which we saw a lot in the Olympics, and incorporating that with this functional movement patterns as well. Can you go into, first off, what is cupping? Okay. Is it just bruises on the body? Yeah. And then after that, go into how you use it in your practice.
Yeah, that's another, you're just full of good questions today. So I took this course from Christopher DiPrato, who's a physical therapist at Bay Area Sports, who has been doing myofascial decompression, is what it's called, but he has been doing it for probably 10, 15 years now, and he's actually the physical therapist for the U.S. Olympic team, and so that's who I learned from.
So he's the one bruising Michael Phelps.
He's the one that bruised Michael Phelps.
Okay, now we know.
Yeah, so if you need to blame him, now I name dropped him. So, but he's been doing it for years, and having that functional movement. I've also taken other courses with connective tissue and fascia and just like anatomy trains, things like that, and just incorporating it into those kind of theories as well has been really instrumental in getting people to kind of free up their motion and allow that soft tissue barrier to just be released in like 3 minutes. Usually is all the treatment takes, 3 to 5 minutes or so. So it's been really helpful and beneficial, especially if it is a connective tissue, soft tissue type of restriction or problem. If it's structural, like bone and joint, then it's not going to help too much. But if there's any tissue relation to it at all, it's pretty crazy how fast it can be effective. The most effective is like car accidents or people that have neck pain from sitting at a computer for too long and they just get that tightness. Because basically that's just like built up restriction. So the cups, what we'll do is just kind of help pull at it, release it, and then all of a sudden people just feel like this sense of like euphoria after. It's pretty crazy.
Can you describe what the process is that's making this actually work?
So it's basically using a cup and using negative pressure theories. So it's drawing back on ideas from ancient Chinese medicine from thousands of years ago. And so negative pressure, so it goes a cup and then you pump, so it sucks up some of the connective tissue and muscle into the cup. And so if you think about like this shirt, and let's just say that like this area here on me and connective tissue wise is just restricted, and I keep trying to stretch it and pull at it, but this just does not break up. It's like adhesed, right? What we can do is we can go a cup kind of around it to kind of help pull some of that tissue. And then while that tissue is being pulled, we're stretching and we're moving and we're yanking on it at different angles and different directions. So it basically takes that congested area, and through our movement with the cup on and stretching, and then when we release it, it just kind of lets it kind of be free, stimulates blood flow to it, so it becomes a little bit more healthier and able to move rather than being just this like congested ball and an area of immobility.
And that's, you mentioned adding movement into that, so that's a little different than if you went to another practitioner that just puts the cups on and leaves it for a little bit.
So if you had like cupping before, that's usually what happens. Is it's a very passive thing. They do the cups, which is great, but they don't usually have you move. You're just kind of laying there normally, whether it's with fire or a pump or whatever technique they use. But with the myofascial decompression, the concept is to put them on, but also to stretch and kind of move so you can get all the connective tissue and all the fascia that goes into that area to also move. And so using the decompression cups coupled with the Gray Institute knowledge that I have, it really, really is beneficial, pretty quickly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do a little demonstration to show kind of the work that you're doing with the cupping, because I think it's fascinating. Yeah. So let's go right into it.
Cool.
Okay, we have a guest to be the patient today, Sarah Kish, and Chris is going to demonstrate cupping on her calf. So can you go through your assessment process, Chris?
Yeah, so we did I won't go through the whole eval. We already evaled her a little bit. She basically has some tightness and some discomfort through the calf, mainly from hiking a lot recently. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to try to release some of that tension through the calf, possibly up into the hamstring. So first of all, we're going to just see what kind of motion she has and just kind of see where that's at to see what kind of gains we make after the cups. So she gets about 5 degrees of dorsiflexion. Okay, and I'm going to kind of push her more. So that was actively. So passively, she's getting about 15 or so. Okay, and then from there, I just ask her, like, kind of get a sense for how it feels through the calf, through the Achilles, down into the foot, how tight it is. Just kind of put that into your mental bank. Because after the cups, we're going to do this again, just kind of see how it feels as well. I might also go here and just kind of see, again, kind of just feel how that feels. Okay, she has pretty good motion overall. But if she was really restricted, like my friend Brian, then we would notice a pretty big difference pretty quickly. So what we're going to do is we're just going to apply some lotion just because it helps kind of let the tissue decompress a little bit more into the cup and a little bit easier, and it's a little bit more tolerable. If you don't do it with lotion, it just becomes really painful. It feels like your skin's going to rip.
And the cups still stick to the tissues even with the lotion on there?
Yeah, they actually stick a little bit better, and you're going to see why here shortly. Because the amount of pressure that goes through the cup is pretty significant. She has small legs. You're super strong, but
like a child.
yeah.
Like a child's body.
So what we're going to do is we're going to put one cup on, and it's going to feel like a pinch, okay? So that's basically it right there, okay? So if you get woozy or anything by looking at needles and stuff like that, you probably don't want to look down. I've never had anybody pass out, but they say it's possible.
I could see how it could freak people out.
It's kind of trippy, right?
It's kind of like putting the vacuum hose on you, but it's a super strong vacuum.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's a little more intense.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a lot more intense. So again, coupling with what I learned through Dr. DePrato with the myofascial decompression, and then through the Gray Institute with just how the body and how the fascial system works and how it's connected. I'd probably, if she was in shorts, I'd probably go one more up here. And I might, if she was having back pain, I might even go here as well. But for the sake of this demonstration, we'll just have her go here. So there's two things we can do now. So one, we can kind of have her lay on her right side facing me. There you go. So we could, if she was like having a tough time having the cups on, we could just passively stretch her and try to get that pull and stretch. How's that feel?
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty intense though, right? Yeah, it's pretty tight, okay? And we can kind of actively do it for her. But what we're going to do, since Sarah is a high-level athlete, we're going to have her stand up. We're going to go into the stretch station here and have her do a little bit of movement. So really the goal is to get that whole posterior chain into the calf. Yeah, you can hop, that's fine. Hold on to here. Okay, and put your left foot here. Good. Come into the middle more. There you go, perfect. And then put your right foot up on the slant if you can. And you can hang on to the bars. You're okay. Good. Perfect. Okay, and then from there, you're just going to kind of do like your standard kind of calf stretch. So come forward. Okay, yeah, you're going to feel a big pull, right? And then come back out of it. Okay, and then go forward. Good. Come back out. Just kind of go back and forth 10 times. And I'm just going to kind of help get that tissue to pull. Kind of get it to
Still in
stretch.
the heat.
Yeah.
To warm a jacket.
You're doing great. So right now, the way she's moving, we're doing a great job getting kind of this area and above. We're not getting a ton through that bottom cup, and that's okay. We're going to get that a little bit later. Okay. And then all we're going to do to kind of tweak it is we're just going to take this foot here, and we're going to kind of pigeon toe it, so have it go in that way. Okay, perfect. And we're going to do the same thing. Okay. So we're just going to change the angle a little bit. Again, try to get it to kind of pull, tug different directions. Good. I like the stretch station a lot because it gives people a lot of different handhold options, a lot of support, especially when you have the cups on. It can be a little bit of pain in the moment. But again, it's only about 3 to 5 minutes that we're going to have them on. Good. Okay, and then straighten out this foot. Okay, and now what we're going to do is I want you to think about this knee. I want you to bend that knee as much as you can. Good. Good. Perfect. And then straighten it out. Straight, 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 straight. Perfect. Bend. Nice. Straight. We're going to do 10.
Can you have them on for too long?
Yes. And if you have them on for too long, you really start getting some welts. You might even get some bleeding. I had a patient who really, really loved this. And so he actually went out, got a set on his own, and did it on his own. And then I saw him a couple months later, and he was like, "Oh man, that was so bad. I never want to do it again." I was like, "What happened? You had such a good response to it." And he said, "Well, I put them on." And then he said he watched a TV show, started texting, forgot they were on. He said he sat there for an hour. And so then when he took them off, he just had these blisters and welts on his back, and it was not pretty for sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This has been like 15 minutes.
Sorry. Good job. You did great. You're like, yeah, get these things off of me.
Chris is great at getting distracted.
Good. And then last thing is bring your right foot down. Okay, put your left foot up now. Okay. And all we're going to do now, let's put it up a little bit higher. Perfect right there. Okay, and we're going to take this hand. We're just going to reach towards that orange board down there. Yeah, really reach. Really reach. Okay, good. And come back. Good. Actually bring it down. Good. Try it again. Good. There you go. Good. Perfect. Yeah, there you go. So like I said, what I find to be really beneficial is to have the cups on and to utilize that, like, I guess you could say functional movement, again, just authentic movement that really naturally pulls, stretches that tissue. And Sarah, I'm sure you feel a big pull every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll do 2 more. 1. And then all my hands are doing is just kind of help guiding that tissue. Let's do 1 more, actually. Help guiding and stretching that tissue, kind of where we want it to be. Bring it down. Whew. Okay, so we're going to release them and let them go. Okay. You all right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so again, if you kind of watch down here and watch that tissue, you can kind of just see how it just kind of allows it to be free a little bit. Right? Kind of releases. Has a little mark, I know. But not too bad. And it probably feels really good once it's off.
Yes.
Okay, good. Good. Go ahead and walk a little bit. Yeah, just kind of move it around. Yeah, just kind of walk maybe a little bit that way. Okay, it should just feel like it's a little free.
Yeah, it feels way more loose.
Yeah, exactly. So go ahead and lay back down on the table. Okay, and we'll just kind of, again, remember how we stretched you at the beginning, told you to put it in your memory bank for how does it feel, things like that. So first off, we're just going to kind of see how it feels. So we're going to bend you up. Oh my gosh, yeah. So how does that feel? Does it feel looser, more mobile?
Yeah, it feels
A lot more mobile, okay? And it doesn't feel as tight through here, right? Okay? And even just doing that, I don't know if you can probably get that or if you got that on camera before, her range of motion is a lot greater now. Even just through that, she's at about 22.
She was at 5 before?
Well, she was at 5, so do it yourself. So before when she did it herself, she was at about 5 to 7. And her doing it herself, she gets to 15. But then when I pushed her, we got her to 15. And now we can get her to about 22 to 25. Right? And again, that feeling that she feels is that it's more mobile, that it's not tight, it can actually move again. Right? And just it feels a little bit happier, I guess you could call it. But it's like I said, it takes about 3 to 5 minutes of a treatment session, and that if it's purely tissue, connective tissue related, effects can be felt like that. So it's pretty great.
That was only about 5 minutes worth of work, too.
Exactly. And then after that, we would normally follow it up with some more stability work, some exercises, things of that nature. Because once you take tissue, say tissue moves from here to here, right? And then we did cups, now we increase that mobility to here. your brain, just like neuroplasticity, has no idea how to use this space. And so doing exercises to follow it up is going to help kind of remind the body to say, this is how you use that new mobility. And so then next time she comes in, instead of moving here to here, it's probably going to be a little bit further. And then we'll do it again, she'll move a little bit further, and then so on and so forth, until her brain knows how to actually take up that space and use that extra mobility that we gain.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's really neat work.
Feel all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, it's kind of intense during the moment.
Oh man, yeah.
But again, the aftermath is kind of like, oh man, it feels really...
It's so crazy how quick it loosened up too. As soon as you popped them out, my whole leg was just like melted.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty instrumental, I think. So it's good. It's definitely something I'll continue to use and get better at. So
Super powerful.
yeah.
So, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about where people can find you on the internet, what you're doing, where you're at?
Yeah, so my name's kind of hard. It's Chris Soterakopoulos, so that in itself is a challenge.
Yeah, spell that. Is it
yeah.
dinosaur? Or?
Yeah, it's something like that. But, you know, if you look up at our clinic website, thinkvita.com, so think just like think, and then vida.com. You can find me on there as well as my clinic. We do acupuncture, massage, chiropractic, physical therapy, naturopath services under one roof. We're primarily out of the Seattle area, but we also have a location in Bellevue and Everett. And then also we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. And so I have YouTube videos up as well that just go over some simple exercises and things that you can do. Also techniques that I utilize. A lot of the videos I post on YouTube are more educational, you know, why you're having problems, things like that, rather than treatments itself. But yeah, we're peppered all over the internet. So if you try to look up Vita or myself, you can definitely find me on any of those sites for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chris, for having us come
Yeah,
in
this
and
is great, man.
see the work that you're doing. I think it's awesome work.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's fun. It's good seeing you and Sarah again, and you know, this is my first podcast, so it was great. I
Awesome.
think we rocked it, though.
I think so, too.
Yeah, you did.
Cool.
All right, we'll see you next time. We'll definitely have to do a follow-up podcast and see some more of the stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, love to help any way I can.
All right, take care.
Cool.